All right, third question of the day. Lavanya?
I don't remember.
Okay. Good thing you submitted it early. Your question was, which is the best place to put your SEO keywords in the H1 or the H2 heading? So, good question. The answer is, why not both?
Oh, okay.
The H1 and the H2 are header tags that Google uses to divide your content into sections. And so as a guideline, although it's not a rule, you probably want to have one H1 on every page. And the H1 tag should be unique to that page. I did a big SEO audit the other day, and the developers, and this is pretty common, they used the H1 tag and they used it to generate the logo for the company. That's an unfortunate waste, because the logo of the company is an image, and even if it was just an H1 with the company's name in it, that isn't as helpful as having specific keywords that that page is about in the H1. So I always recommend making sure the H1 is unique to the page, and don't use the H1 to display something like the name of the website or the name of the company of represented website. And then I like to divide my content between H2s. And sometimes if I go an extra step in depth, I might do an H3 or maybe even an H4. But you can think about your website. If you were to make an outline of your website's content, would the H tags give you kind of form an outline? If you took out all the text and you just shown the H tags, would it kind of form an outline of what your web page is about? So maybe there's one H1 and it summarizes what this page is about. The H2, you should maybe have a few H2s dividing it into subsections. And if you can use your keywords in those, great. You know, don't just repeat the same keyword, but use variations. Use the keyword research to determine what are questions people are asking about your topic. Ask those as H2s and answer them underneath. If you have a need to further divide your content between your subheadings, use a subheading as an H3 and just use it to organize the content. This does a couple things. Google likes it because it kind of gives Google an idea of what your page is about. But it makes it really visually helpful for users, because users don't read content. You know, we've said before that I like pages that have 800 words or more on a page, but we're not doing that because we actually expect someone to read all 800 words. People glance. And if we're dividing our content with several H1s, H2s, maybe even H3s or onward, we're making it really helpful for users to kind of get a glance and see what this page is about. If they see a question or see a sub headline that's really interests them, they can take a moment and read that. It really helps your users, but it also helps your SEO. So, should you put your H1 keywords in your H1 or H2? Is, yeah, all of them. Like let's do all of them. Let's use this semantic organization of our page to help the users and the search engines understand what the page is about. Everybody following when we're talking about H tags?
Yeah, I actually have a question on that subject. Is it okay to skip some heading levels? Like if you went from H1, you didn't really have any other subheadings until like maybe just an H5 from like a design standpoint, right? Like I don't want it to be as large as an H2. It's not fitting under like what would be a subcategory of the main heading. Is that good practice or bad?
Google is interested in the H heading, not the size. So ideally we'd use CSS to size the text. So theoretically, the H2 could be the biggest text on the page because of CSS modifying that. So we shouldn't use the H tags based on their size for the text alone. We should be using them for their semantic value to say an H1 maybe describes what the whole page is about, and H2 describes what this section of the site is about. So it's okay if you skip them. Like, this is one of many ranking factors and probably not even a very big one. But don't think that when you code out a site, you have to use the size of the H2 in your code. So you could use an H2 and just use the CSS to size it appropriately. And so then you wouldn't have to skip the H2 to get to the H5, which might be closer to the size that you're looking for as a designer.
Okay.
I really like on my blog posts, especially, to make sure I have several H2s dividing the content so it's easier on the eyes. Now my site's set up so the CSS makes sense and it's not as large as it has to be. But I feel it really easy